It's extra time.
He shoots, and it's a goal!
Hello and welcome back to the Extra Time podcast, coming at you as a podcast and of course on YouTube now. And today I've got two very special guests for you. I've got Henry Hill returning from his triumphant debut last week or the week before. It's been 2 weeks of glory for you.
Yeah, no.
How are you feeling, Henry?
I'm feeling good, thank you. Yeah, it's good to be back. I read it in the comments last time. There were two main themes. That one was I look like Luke Shaw, which I'd never considered before. And also that was a nicer version of you, Pato. So, I mean, I don't know what I'd rather be, a Luke Shaw lookalike or a nicer version of you. Maybe, Jacko, you've got a better opinion on that, on what's a better thing to want to be.
I think like probably like a nicer version of Pato, to be honest, because does anyone actually want to be Luke Shaw? I don't know. I guess he's 120 grand a week might not help, but you know.
Well, I'll take a nice version of Pato.
I'm arguably better in my position than Luke Shaw. But also joining us, making his podcast debut, is Dave Jackson. Dave, you are surrounded by Arsenal shirts today. You're probably the best pro at Football Daily right now. Yeah.
I would definitely take that, mate, considering we've got Zach Jalabin there, you know, in like the starting lineup. I guess I've been waiting for the call-up for a couple of weeks. I kind of, how could I put it? I kind of flirted with it a couple of weeks ago, but then I realised what the topic was, and I realised I knew nothing about the topic, so I thought I'd bow out very quickly. But yeah, I feel very good to be asked. I feel very honoured to be on the FD pod, mate.
I think, Dave, it says a lot about you that I was asked to be on the pod before you. I think you need to think about your work ethic.
I know, mate. I know.
In fairness, Dave recused himself when he realised it was going to require some research last time. He was like, absolutely not. I'm not having that. So today, it's all opinion-based.
Nice.
So obviously, we're going to lead this week with a little bit of a discussion of the Premier League returning in a couple of weeks' time. And then we wanted to talk about Vincent Kompany saying that Virgil van Dijk is the best defender in Premier League history. But let's kick it off with that Premier League news, because yesterday, that was Thursday, it was confirmed that the Premier League will return on the 17th of June, and it's going to start off with a bang. Man City versus Arsenal. Obviously, probably continue the streak of away teams beating home teams when Arsenal whoop Man City, I imagine by 4 or 5. But every one of the remaining 92 Premier League games will be broadcast live across Sky Sports, BT Sport, BBC Sport, or Amazon Prime. In fact, Sky are going to make 25 of the remaining top flight matches free to air, including the Merseyside derby, which is going to come on that first weekend back. And the kickoff times are absolutely ridiculous. Henry, have you seen these? Like, it does just seem like they're basically trying to set it up so that we can watch about 8 games a weekend.
If they're wanting people to stay at home, and they've sure found a good way to do it, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's non-stop. I think the boys have been tweeting that old David Mitchell thing about football all the time, all day, and it's right now. It is. I mean, you're going to have to pick and choose your games, because I don't know if anyone's got the stomach to sort of sit through that much football.
Well, fortunately, the first day back, as well as Man City Arsenal, it's also Villa Bournemouth or something. So it's going to be a reminder of how good the Premier League can be, and also how unwatchable it can be at times.
I assume Villa Bournemouth's going on the free-to-air channel. I assume BBC Sport are snapping that up for the red button.
Well, it's an audience of billions, right? They've got to get asses in seats. Jackson, what are you looking forward to the most about the last few weeks of the season?
I just can't wait to see Arsenal play again. I tried to get excited about the Bundesliga, but I really didn't care. That's one of the things I've realised. Like, obviously, I'm a football fan, but more important, I'm like an Arsenal fan. You know, like I think like the World Cup's a bit different, but when it comes to like club football, I only actually care about Arsenal, if I'm being perfectly honest. And I just can't wait. I feel, you know, it's almost set up perfectly for Arsenal to just go on one of the greatest runs in Premier League history, right? You know, it's essentially like we're playing in neutral venues. You know, all of our tough games we had left were basically away games. We had to go away to Spurs. We've got to take Liverpool at our ground, but hopefully they'll be champions then. They'll be kind of relaxed. City away. Again, you know, I think we've played United now, so yeah, so we would normally have to go away to Spurs, which is always a tough game, particularly Derby, but that becomes almost like neutralised because we'll be playing in an empty stadium. And Man City away, first game back, you know, we should have. There's no excuse for us not to have a fully fit squad, is there? They haven't been doing anything for 2 months.
No.
So I'm kind of hoping that you know, yeah, this is going to be the greatest win streak in the history of the Premier League, where Arsenal climbed not only back into fourth, but I'm actually looking at third, Pat. I'm
third.
looking at third. I don't know, what was it, 9 games left? What's that, 27 points to be had there? So,
oh yeah,
Dave, I think you've been self-isolating too long. I think some lofty dreams. I tell you what I am looking forward to, though. I'm looking forward to listening to commentators that know what they're talking about, because quite clearly
Sure.
the BT Sport crowd, they've got Martin Keown and said, today you're commentating on Freiburg versus Cologne, and he's gone, he might pretend that he has a clue what he's on about, but he definitely doesn't. And some of the commentary that's been coming out and the claims, it is a bit disappointing to see. I mean, Martin Keown the other week, he said there's a definite realism to the way that Frankfurt are passing the ball, which is just like the most nonsensical sentence ever. What? It can't. Obviously, there's definite realism to the way they're passing the ball, because they are passing the ball. Because he was trying to make a metaphor about
in the world.
He was trying to make a metaphor about the fact that although there's no crowd there, they're still playing football as if there is a crowd. But I mean, I don't know. It's just
what.
Yeah, it was just made no sense
as opposed to like magical realism to the way they're passing the ball, where someone just takes off like in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and like flies into the goal. What's he on? My favourite thing about Martin Keown is that he will start talking about players by their position. So he'll be like, "Oh, the right back's not having a good game," and then like he's had time to look up later in the show who the right back is, but he's still calling him the right back. Like that to me is such a sign that he's like mentally checked out.
I think I probably need to stay quiet, because when I'm doing the football social, I'm very rarely. I remember one time, I think it was Cardiff against Arsenal, and they had a big striker up top. I had no idea what his name was, and he actually scored against Arsenal. And obviously people asked me, what kind of happened, what's going on? I said, basically some fat fellas just scored for Cardiff up top. So I don't really have a leg to stand on here. So I have a little bit of sympathy for Martin Keown, but then again, the football social is quite a long way from kind of like the actual live coverage of the return of the Premier League. But if anyone does need some great punditry, probably don't come to me.
I'm getting dug out on Twitter constantly at the moment. Like somebody sent me like so many DMs because I said something on a show which implied that St James's Park was still called the Sports Direct Arena or whatever. And when he was just like, "Oh, you got this wrong," I was like, "Mate, I don't care. Like, I just don't care about Newcastle." And he was like, "Don't you think that you should know though, like as somebody who works in football?" And I was like, "I barely work in football." And as somebody who works in football, there are so many teams I'd rather take an interest in than Newcastle. But he was absolutely furious. I mean, like, all I hope is that Newcastle finish below 15th so I can make this 20 quid or whatever that Henry Hill is gonna owe me at the end of the season. Yeah, we've got a bet still going. I've still got a bet with Millad as well about Rashford scoring 15.
I need Newcastle to finish 14th or higher to claim £20 of Pato, and I'm still pretty.
They probably will though.
And where are like Newcastle now?
Like 13th.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think there's a cushion. I think there's like a 5-point cushion. The only good thing is that I had this bet with Millad that Rashford would get 15 league goals, and he got 14, and then he got injured, and it looked like he was going to miss the rest of the season. But now the season has been delayed; he might be back and fit. So if he comes back and scores, then I think I get a tenner off Millad, which is going to halve the amount I lose to Henry, inevitably.
I think in a moment I'm on course to owe Joe £30. So the first bet was that I could get Peter Cech onto the football social, which I don't know what I was thinking there, because I think basically the moment I said that he went and signed to be like the sporting director at Chelsea. So I don't think he needs that 1,500 notes to come on the football social anymore. But and then the second bet was when Igalo came. I betted Joe that Pepe would get more goals than Igalo, but now that's actually looking alright, because I believe that Igalo's loan is not going to be renewed, so he'll actually be back to China before like a ball's kicked again. And obviously Pepe has got another 9 games to take Arsenal to third position, so I'm actually quite sweet with that one.
I think the worst bet I ever made was that Charlie Austin was going to start for England at the World Cup. I don't think that ever materialised that one. So, but yeah,
which World Cup would that even have been? The last one.
I think so. I think Russia. He was going to lead the line at some point, but no, that never. I'm glad I didn't win that bet, quite frankly. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you said about the Rashford thing, Because they're saying, in Germany, the number of injuries has like rocketed because they've all come back and they've all sort of been like rushed into it. Do you think it's going to be because all the teams should technically have their best teams out, or do you think this is going to be a bit of a quite a dangerous free-for-all where you see even like Haaland the other day had to hobble off injured, which pretty much stuffs Dortmund's sort of plans for the rest of the year. But what do you think in terms of where the squads are going to be going into the season renewal?
I think one of the things I would say, from having watched a couple of the Bundesliga games, I think it's really going to harm the clubs that maybe don't have the strength and depth that some of the bigger clubs have. Because obviously, watching the games on the weekend, the German teams, they made very good use of the fifth substitution, right? And say you're, for example, Sheffield United, and you have a very good starting 11, potentially a 12. You've still got another 9 games to play with them people where they've kind of was at peak fitness. That's now dropped off for 2 months, and they're essentially trying to get back to that level. I think teams like that could suffer quite drastically. I think if Sheffield United are probably one of the clubs that have been hurt the most by this break in play, and you look at clubs like. I'd say probably even like Spurs. It's probably come at the perfect time for Spurs, right? It's another 2 months for Jose to at least be in the lives of these players. He's probably going to be able to work with them on a one-on-one basis. But players like Kane, who was looking like he was going to be out for the rest of the season. Son, he kind of broke his arm. And then they are the 2 players they signed in January. It kind of gives them another 2 months to kind of get back to match sharpness, have time with his teammates, even though it's not kind of one-on-one time, obviously, because they haven't been able to interact. But still to kind of make himself more comfortable to his kind of current kind of climate. So I think it's really going to affect the clubs that don't maybe have the strength and depth that some of the bigger teams was. It's actually again even more harsh on kind of like your clubs like Sheffield United and but whereas you're kind of hoping from like a selfish point of view, teams like Arsenal, teams like Man United who probably do have more established Premier League players in their squad. Then rather than just the starting 11, we should be able to go on that bit of a stronger run and finish the season a lot stronger than what we probably would have if it would all have been over by now.
And also there are advantages for some teams who've signed guys who are going to join. So William Saliba, who's going to join Arsenal, he should be available to play for Arsenal from the 1st of July. Arsenal can register him then. Because obviously the league season has finished in France. The same goes for Watford, who signed Pape Gueye, also out of France. And arguably Hakim Ziyech as well for Chelsea. The Eredivisie is over, so he might be available to play for them from the 1st of July. If you've still got kind of 3 or 4 fixtures left, just having somebody who can come in and give you some quality minutes down the stretch could really make the difference for those teams, because they've said it's going to be 6 weeks or so, the end of the season, 3 midweek rounds and 6 weekend rounds. That's really intense to come back into. On the plus side, I think the Premier League has had a bit more of a gradual ramp up to the league starting again. They've been training the last few weeks. Now they're training with contact. We've still got another couple of weeks before it all actually kicks off. And so I think that maybe they'll be a little bit further along in the fitness process. But yeah, it's definitely a concern. And it could really shape as well transfers for the summer if significant players get injured. But I'm excited about it.
Yeah. I know I'm going a bit off topic and maybe this takes us in a whole different direction, but I was interested to know what you guys think in terms of, obviously, a lot of the leagues around Europe have now finished, so France, Holland, etc. Do you think, how do you think that will impact the chances of PSG actually going on and winning the Champions League now, where essentially they wouldn't play competitive football until potentially the Champions League is renewed again? And you're looking at the dates, that's probably not going to be at the earliest sort of middle of July before they can even play the second half of rounds of 16. PSG, who were looking like they kind of had all their eggs in that basket anyway, right? Do you think how will that affect them, do you think? The fact they wouldn't be able to play competitive football against anyone, right? I know they can potentially organise some friendlies. I don't know if that's a thing, but friendly football is not the same as, week in, week out and trying to at least challenge to get back in the top 4 for the next season, right?
One of the things that the Lyon president, Aulas, was saying is that PSG are affected by this. Their Champions League potential is going to be affected by this. And I think it's impossible to assume that they're going to they're going to be, by July, just be ready to take on what will probably be one of the bigger teams in Europe who have already continued to play. So, I mean, yeah, I do think that if there was going to be a year they were going to win it, I really thought it was going to be this year. I thought they looked amazing in the group stage, and I think they've got all the necessary tools with Neymar back, etc. But this is really, I think, the cancellation of their league is definitely not going to help. And you're right. I mean, you can play as many friendlies as you want, and I'm sure they'll manage to find a way to do that, and probably be able to send a team abroad to train elsewhere. But yeah, I think they may live to regret being. Because Pat, am I right in thinking that the PSG president was keen? He was happy for the league to be called off. I mean, originally he wasn't, but then I think he turned around and he was.
Yeah. He was fine with it in the end. Yeah,
I think it will be difficult because you can have like we were basically just saying, you can have the fittest squad in the world, but if they're not match fit, then it's going to be tricky. And I think this is where they're going to get unstuck.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see what happens with European competition as well, because obviously it's going to. Then you've got teams flying around, and at that point, it gets a little bit more difficult to organise. But very excited about football coming back. And of course, La Liga due to return in about 10 days as well. So exciting times for us. We actually get to talk about football instead of having to make up some bullshit every week. Speaking of exactly that sort of topic, let's move on to our second matter to discuss today, which is Vincent Kompany, formerly of Manchester City, gave an interview with the BBC in which he said that Virgil van Dijk is the greatest defender in Premier League history. Now, his argument here was that Liverpool had a great team before Van Dijk arrived, but obviously had frailties at the back, and essentially Van Dijk single-handedly resolved them. Now, I think that's a little bit generous, given that we've also seen the development of Trent, Andy Robertson, Fabinho came in as a DM. But I did look at the stats, and in the first half of the season before Van Dijk joined in 17-18, Liverpool had the fourth best defence in the Prem by expected goals. They were allowing about 1 a game, so you'd expect them to concede about a goal a game, which is pretty good, but not amazing. Over the remaining half of that season, they had the second best defence and conceded 0.8 expected goals a game. So if you extrapolate that over the course of a season, it's the difference between conceding 38 goals a season and conceding 30, which is a pretty sizable difference. Now, to me, I think it's actually kind of a difficult time to make this argument, because as much as everyone loves Van Dijk, I think he was better last year. I truly do. But Dave, I saw you kind of give a little grimace when I said what Kompany said. What do you think about this claim that Van Dijk is the best defender in PL history?
I think Virgil van Dijk is... I have never seen a player improve a single team as much as he has in terms of one player going into a team and lifting, like the whole style of play, the way that he's secure. Like they are a different machine than Virgil van Dijk. And obviously, like the stats kind of back that up. And I think he has improved players around him as well, which again is very, very important. And I think the manager he's playing under as well deserves a lot of credit for that. The way that Jurgen Klopp has managed to build a system that Virgil van Dijk was almost like the missing piece. I think he is a world-class defender as well. But I do not believe he is the greatest defender in Premier League history. I think in my opinion, and this actually pains me to say it. It pains me to say it, but I think the greatest defender in Premier League history is actually John Terry. And I exactly, a little bit of sick came as well. But I think he was the most consistent defender year in, year out. I think, that season, what was it, 2005, where they conceded like 9 goals or something. I don't know what it was.
They conceded 9 goals away. They conceded 15 goals in the Prem that season.
That is like ridiculous. Like that's and that again, there was a fake quote knocking about this week as well from Michael Ballack. I don't know if you guys saw it. It's actually found out to be that it's not actually real, when it was essentially saying Virgil van Dijk never played against your Henrys, your Shearers, even players like Adebayors and stuff like that. Like the era he's playing in, you've kind of got Aguero, who's again world class, Aubameyang, Kane. But that's kind of it really in terms of top tier strikers, because obviously the other two are playing at Liverpool, so he's not going to have to play against them. And I think the era that John Terry played in as well. I think there's probably in terms of strikers within the league, I think I would potentially argue that the level was probably higher than what it is now. I think there's still world-class strikers in the Premier League now, but I think if you look at the group of strikers, I think the level was higher when John Terry was playing, and I think he did it for longer. And I think he was. I think the impact he had at Chelsea, and the way that he led that Chelsea team as well. And again, it does pain me to say, because kind of as an Arsenal fan, and kind of personally, I'm not the biggest fan of John Terry, but I think as a player and just actually defending, and putting his body where he needs to put it in order to stop goals and to then lead and set that example. I think, again, pains me to say, John Terry was probably the best defender in Premier League history. I originally, when you sent me this question the other day, my head was like, it's going to be, it would have been Ashley Cole, but then I didn't realise he only won 3 Premier Leagues. Like it was obviously 2 at Arsenal and then 1 at Chelsea. I thought he'd won a lot more. He's won a lot of trophies, and it was, again, pains me to say, definitely the right decision for him to leave Arsenal for Chelsea, because you look on, he won the Champions League, FA Cups, etc. And the run we went on post Ashley Cole, we had to wait till 2013 to win our next trophy. But yeah, originally it was Ashley Cole, because I think Ashley Cole as a player, he's one of my favourite big game players. Like, it didn't matter who he was playing against, who he was set to play against, they would always have a tough game. And I think, in terms of the art of defending, and then also going forward and becoming more of an offensive kind of threat, Ashley Cole was one of the best to kind of ever do it. But then, as I say, like, you're looking at the trophies that he won, and I know it's not the be all and end all, but I think the number of trophies that you have actually won actually comes into discussion when you're talking about the best ever in a particular position. So again, that's why it pays him to say, I think it's John Terry. There was a lot that I just said there, so sorry if I talked too much.
No, I didn't know you were a secret Chelsea fan, but it's fine.
I know,
So we've heard Dave make the case for a couple of his beloved Chelsea players, but Henry, you texted me with a really good alternative to both of these when you talked about one of the other great defenders in Premier League history, in Breda Hangeland.
Oh wow!
Like what a superstar he was. What do you think? Do you agree with Dave here, or do you think that that Kompany has a case? Because it seems to me like there are 2 different arguments going on here, right? I think you could argue that Van Dijk last season had the best season any centre-back has ever had in the Premier League. But that's not enough to be the best Premier League defender ever. You've got to have longevity, and he hasn't. He's probably going to win a Premier League title, but he hasn't won it yet.
Yeah.
Rio Ferdinand won 6, and Rio Ferdinand probably stylistically was a little bit more similar to Van Dijk, maybe. Like, he was that guy who would, he was much more like Van Dijk than, say, Vidic was, where he would, like, step out of the back and, like, spray passes and was very, like, modern kind of centre-back. Henry, what do you think here? What's your opinion?
I'd like to start off by saying any Fulham fan out there will agree that Aaron Hughes and Breda Hangeland were a centre-back partnership unrivalled, certainly in West London. But no, I mean, yeah, I am with Dave on this one. I don't think you can be judged the greatest ever centre-back in Premier League after 18 months of football. I don't think that's true. Also, a name you just mentioned there, Nemanja Vidic, I still think what he achieved in the game is far and beyond anything that Van Dijk's achieved. And what people often say, like you said, last season for Van Dijk was such an incredible year for him, and it was. But Vidic in 08-09 was exceptional, like a truly exceptional season for him. He kept more clean sheets than Van Dijk did. They conceded fewer goals. That United team, he put in more blocks, interceptions, tackles. Obviously the stats don't say it all, and he was probably playing within a better system. I'd say defensively, Sir Alex Ferguson's teams were much more astute at defending and much more intelligent, and they sort of knew each other much. The way they operated on the pitch was much more intrinsic. So I think that there's a lot to be said to that. But that season, I was just looking at the 2009 Ballon d'Or, and Vidic finished in the top 15 for that one that season. Okay, and the point is, that season, if you look at the people that finished above him, number 1 is Messi, you've got Ronaldo, Xavi. He was playing football in an era where, as a centre-back, I don't think he was ever really going to get the respect he deserved in terms of being put up in the lights in the way that Van Dijk got put up in the lights last year. And, and I do think last year was an incredible. I really wanted Van Dijk to win the Ballon d'Or. I was really up for that. But, someone like Vidic, I think, has had an individually as good as season as Van Dijk at some point in his career. It maybe just hasn't received the recognition it necessarily deserves. I do, however, think that Van Dijk does have the potential to go on and be the best ever. But I mean, because I still think this Klopp almost dynasty could last for a few years, and I really do think he could accelerate and push on. But as it stands, I don't think it's possible to say so.
Yeah, I think he's probably going to have to end up, though, with 3 or 4 titles and continue to perform at this insane level in order to be in that conversation, though, because John Terry, as much as I hate him, and I do hate him, in 2004-05, he was a world-class centre-back. In 2014-15, he was a world-class centre-back. And in between, mostly, he was a world-class centre-back. That's a decade of top performance in the Premier League, under a bunch of different managers. Chelsea, even when they were bad, were a pretty good defensive side. And Liverpool last year allowed 22 goals in the league, which I think is joint third best in Premier League history. But that Chelsea side in 04-05 allowed 15 in the league. Arsenal in 98-99 allowed 17 as well. That was Tony Adams' era. I just think, I'd want to see more longevity from him. Yeah. Even Vincent Kompany's got 4 titles, and for Van Dijk at 28 years old to match that, he's basically got to win the next 3, I think.
Yeah, I think, if that's the case, I think that would change things, and, if he can win another Champions League as well, he's been to one final, won one, lost one. If if in 2023 he's won another 3 league titles, then I think we can, it would be a pretty strong argument for, to be honest. But he's obviously got a long way to go.
I still think, I don't think Van Dijk's been better than Rio Ferdinand. I don't think he can say he's definitively been a better defender than Rio Ferdinand. I think if you look at what Rio Ferdinand achieved in the game, that's still unbelievable. And that's, there's a reason he was once the most expensive defender in world football and stuff like that. He was exceptional in his own right. So I do think he's got to leapfrog a few people in order to get to where Vincent Kompany put him. Vincent Kompany, he was amazing. I love Vincent Kompany. I'm surprised that he's been so humble to sort of admit and just retract almost everything that he achieved. Some of the most iconic moments in Premier League history. I still think, it's a great group of players to be amongst. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's see where he is in a couple of seasons, but he's got to focus on getting this first title under his belt first. But we're going to stay in Man City for our final football question, which is Man City apparently targeting Leon Bailey of Bayer Leverkusen as a replacement for Leroy Sané if he leaves this summer. Now, Sané's move seems like it's quite likely to go through, while other teams are talking about free transfers and buyouts and stuff. Apparently, Bayern not planning to make Coutinho's move permanent, which will give them some money. And they've reportedly already set aside the number 10 shirt for Sané. Henry, what do you think of Bailey as a potential signing if Sané is to leave? Do you like this one?
Yes and no. There was a game Bayer played away at Bayern. So Leverkusen played away at Bayern, and he played unbelievably. I think he scored twice that game. He just completely ripped apart the defence. He can be brilliant, Leon Bailey. And the problem is, he's been around a while. We've known his name for quite a while, and no club has ever actually jumped and taken that chance to take him on, which makes me a little bit nervous. For example, if you're going to compare him to Kai Havertz, I for them would be looking at Kai Havertz. I know they're slightly different players. What I do think they would get from Leon Bailey is they get some raw potential, which they could build, and I don't think they'd have that pressure, which they do right now, to rotate Sané and Mahrez. I know that might sound fickle, but that can often be quite an important factor, in promoting squad harmony and stuff like that. He would be someone that they could build into the Manchester City project. I don't think he would cost them a ton of money either, because he's expendable to Leverkusen. I think they could afford to let him go, especially with some of the players they've got coming through at the moment. But he wouldn't be a replacement for Sané. He would be a future project which they could look to build. But yeah, it could make sense. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think it's kind of good that he's a left footer who plays on the left. I think those are actually quite rare now. People want to kind of invert their wingers, right? And he's also played wing back. And I remember there have been certain times where Pep's experimented with playing Sané as a wing back. But I think his injury issues are a bit troubling. He's only played 760 Bundesliga minutes this year, which is Really not a lot at all. So I would be worried about his fitness, but I think he's an amazing player. I'm just not sure he's going to go there and be rotation. Dave, if City sell Sane, obviously people are going to talk about whether they get a replacement in. And with David Silva leaving as well, there's talk about that. But if you were at City, would you be concentrating on attacking positions this summer? Or are there other positions you'd be looking to strengthen?
I think they definitely need I'm going to be kind of talking about this on the Sunday Vibes, right? You know, I think they need a top quality centre half that will potentially be their like number 4 for the next 5 or 6 years, that then other players can like kind of build around, right? So I think that would be a pro. I don't understand why City, unless Sane is so unhappy that they've kind of made like a gentleman's agreement that he's going to be allowed to leave. I don't know why they would allow him to go. You know, he unless there's been a falling out there, you know, potentially if he hadn't got injured, he would potentially already be a Bayern player, right? You know, we don't like, kind of know that, but this replacement, because I've seen a few like kind of YouTube clips of him, and I'll be honest, that is all I've seen of him is like YouTube. It looks like a good player, but he's not in the same league as Leroy Sane. I don't believe. So for me, if I was Man City, I'd be looking to bring in a centre half first, and then if you're silly enough to let Sane go, then you are obviously going to have to replace him. That's the difference between like a Man City and, you know, the rest of the league essentially, right? They need great players and potentially 2 of them in every position. So and they've obviously got the money, you know. I know they're now going to be under a lot more scrutiny in terms of their spending because of like the UEFA ban and whatnot. But it wouldn't be the priority. And if I was City, I would do everything I can to actually try and keep him. If he's unhappy, let's try and make him happy first before we kind of like sell him essentially.
Yeah, well, I think they're a little bit hamstrung here because I think he's now got a year left on his contract. And so I think that kind of might be forcing them. But I kind of hope 1 or 2 of these big money moves go through, because otherwise the whole summer could be a little bit underwhelming.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of need the big teams who do have tons of money to spend so that then the middle teams have some cash. But
apparently they're so far away on valuation when it comes to Sane, though. I think, you know, City are looking closer towards the 80 million mark, and Bayern are sort of confident they can force through a sort of 50 to 40 million. So I don't know where they're going to meet in the middle there. I mean, that's a substantial difference. I mean, Bayern aren't a team to spend massively for the sake of it. I was still amazed they spent 72 million on, is it Theo Hernandez, left back? I was still, Lucas Fernandez at left.
Luca.
Yeah, Luca. Yeah, I was really surprised that they went and did that. I mean, he's a great player. But yeah, I mean, it'd be really interesting to see if they can push that through. But I mean, do you not think just, if Bailey was this good, someone would have taken him on already? Do you not think someone would have tried to snap him up already?
I think teams have tried for him, but I think it is his injury problems, because he's been in and out of the side, and Leverkusen were in a bit of a bad run before Peter Bosz came in last year. I think that hasn't helped. I mean, he was heavily linked to Chelsea and Arsenal a couple of summers ago, but I think it's just a fitness issue. Like, looking at him this year, you've just had Sane sit out a year. Do you go and get this guy who's played the equivalent of like 8 Bundesliga games? Because I certainly don't if I'm Man City. I think let's go and get someone who's reliable and top level. Like, if we're going to have to spend 50 mil anyway, we might as well spend it on somebody who will actually play. Yeah, it's difficult to say. But I think that brings us to the end of our football stuff for this week. So let's move on to a non-football question. Anything but football comes from Ed Armitage this week, who says, with more free time at home, what new things have you found yourself trying to master? Jacko, come on, you've got to have something here.
What have I been doing? I'll be honest. I found myself working more than what I was if we'd be in the office. It's really strange.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not too proud of that. Like, you know, I'll kind of log in about 8 and I won't finish till about 8. So it's like, you know, been really long days. Like, I think in terms of something new, I find myself into a lot more podcasts. I do. There's I don't know if you guys know of one. There's one called Quickly Kevin, Willie Scores, but it's basically a 90s football podcast hosted by Josh Widdicombe. And like, that's now become a part of my daily walk. When I kind of go for a walk, I slap that in, and it actually brings me so much joy. Obviously, after I've listened to the Sunday Vibes Extra Time podcast, you know what I mean. The first thing I listen to is Quickly Kevin, and there's another really good podcast I listen to called The Rewatchables, which is basically they look at kind of like movies from yesteryear, and they kind of put like a modern day set of eyes on them. You know, has this movie aged well? What was the reaction at the time? And I absolutely love that one as well. So podcasting, and now I'm bloody on one. So there you go.
So you've become a master at listening to podcasts. That's what you say.
Yeah, exactly.
Master podcast. No, that's good. I've been. To be fair, I can't really. I feel like I started the lockdown period really strongly with all these like hopes and ambitions, and I feel like they've sort of slowly faded. I've been learning.
What were they? What were your ambitions?
Well, I was learning Portuguese. I was using the Babbel app to learn Portuguese, which was
Nice.
quite good. I was doing that, and I was sadly I sort of injured myself, but I was just trying to keep myself. I actually, ironically, got myself, I'd say, into the best shape I've been in since I left school about 7-8 years ago. So that's been fun. But I mean, other than that, I mean, I'm going to sound like a bit of a spade here, but we've got basically a balcony in our London house, and we've sort of turned it into like a hanging garden. So we've been having fun, sort of experimenting with that. You know, I queued the other day for an hour and a half for a garden centre, which made me realise what a sophisticated young man I've become. So the fact that I sort of got there, I was like, I've walked all this way, I'm sticking this out, I don't care. So yeah, there's a lot of young couples, I'd say, who all look roughly the same as me, who also we've had the same ambitions and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I can't really. It's sad to say, I can't really like you, Dave. I've been working a lot, so it's tough coming up with stories about football when there's no football. So yeah, it's been
yeah, it is.
It's been fun.
How about you, Pat?
I've been cooking quite a lot. Do you know Crust Brothers, like the pizza restaurant in Waterloo? Like they put up a link for how to make their pizza dough. So I learned to make pizza. Like, you know, you make it in a frying pan and then cook it in the oven. Because I was always kind of like, well, I don't really have a way to cook it. Like, so, but we've kind of got to a point where that works pretty well. Other than that, probably exercise. Like, that's really the thing. Like, as well as work, I find that I just don't really have energy for a lot more stuff. Like, I haven't done much French in lockdown, which I've been, you know, learning for a while. So really, it's just exercise. So a couple of times, I'm running longer distances than I used to. I normally just run a 5K, but now I've done a couple of 6s and 7s, and nice. I did a 10 for the first time. So that was kind of good. But now it's getting hot. Like, that's getting difficult as well. So, but mostly, like, that's my aim. I just think if I can come out of lockdown not in worse shape than I went in, like maybe in slightly better, then that'll be a result. But as for mastering it, I'm not sure that I can match up to a guy who's officially the fastest on Football Daily. Isn't that right, Henry?
I'm sure Sam Obaseki would say something about that, but yeah, sure, why not?
Sam can't run 5K. There's no way. His knees would explode.
I don't know why Chris put that on the work email. It's so annoying. He always does that. I'll send him he'll ask me a question. Next thing I know, it's been advertised to all of you lot. But if anyone wants to challenge my 5K time, I'm willing to put it out there. So,
what is your 5K time?
19:10 right now.
Jesus.
Wow.
That is rapid.
Very, very good.
Thank you very
There's
much.
zero chance I'm going to do that. Well, thank you very much, guys, for being on today. I've really enjoyed having you both on. Like, obviously, we should get the C team on more often.
Sorry, C team. All right.
Oh no, that makes Chris and Joe the A team, and they definitely are not that. Thank you very much, guys. What should we send the viewers to go and check out after this?
I think they should head over and watch the Football Pyramid, the greatest quiz game in the history of YouTube quizzing. You know, hosted and developed by David Brent. No, it wasn't David Brent. It was actually Henry Hill. So that's now gone live. There should be 2 episodes of that up. We're really proud of it. Go over and check it out. It's on Euro Football Daily.
Cool. Henry, is there anything you've written recently which people would be interested in watching?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I can't... No. I've been on holiday. No. Yeah, just to say, like, you know, the first episode of the Football Pyramid got, like, 50k views. We're really proud of it, and we think it's an awesome concept. So, yeah, hopefully everyone keep enjoying that, because it's only going to get better.
Yeah, and I'm on the next one with Zach Jellab, and it was actually extremely tense.
You versus
I really enjoyed it.
You versus Zach Jellab.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not a betting man, but if I was, I'll put my money on you. But yeah, that's good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you guys very much for watching/listening. We will catch you next time. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast if you're just checking out an odd episode or if you're watching us on YouTube. And if you are on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe to both of our channels. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Peace. It's extra time.
He shoots, and it's a goal!